Hey, it's Cynthia with Believer's House, and I'm continuing our morning devotions in Matthew chapter 7. We're talking about yesterday, we talked about Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2, and today I want to talk about verses 3 through 5. And so let me read those to you. And when you do look at the speck in your brother's eye, do not consider the plank, but you do not consider the plank in your own eye. How can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your own brother's eye. And so, obviously, this is just an analogy or a principle that Jesus is speaking about, because we don't have planks in our eyes. But when we look at someone else and it's like we don't have any self-awareness, which I was talking about a little bit yesterday, when we judge someone, we need to look at things and recognize we compare ourselves to Jesus, not to each other. So if we're looking for specks in someone else, we're judging other people, and we're looking to compare ourselves to other people to make ourselves feel better. But when we look at Jesus, we see our own planks, right? We see all this, we can even see the specks when we're looking at Jesus and we're asking him to reveal himself in us. So it's kind of a humorous thought if you think about it. Somebody with a board sticking out of their eye trying to pick out a speck in someone else's eye. We can smile at that, but it's really very serious, and we see this happen so often in churches, that people who don't live a biblical life try to point out the faults in others. And I think that's, again, something that we need to look at, that I spoke about yesterday, the difference between a good tree and a bad tree. A bad tree brings out bad fruit, a good tree brings out good fruit. So we need to be careful who we receive from as well, because if there's someone with a plank in their eye and they're worried about your speck, doesn't mean that we don't have a speck, but we need to be sure that we're open to the right kinds of people to speak into our lives. Spurgeon said about these verses, Jesus is gentle, but he calls that man a hypocrite who fusses about small things in others and pays no attention to great matters at home in his own person. And I did a study a couple of days ago on the word hypocrite in the original Hebrew word. A hypocrite was a person, in the Hebrew word, was a person who traveled and was an actor. And they wore masks to represent the person or the item that they were acting to be. And these masks were designed in such a way that the mouth was made in such a way that it helped the sound go out further, so that the actor could be heard in larger groups. And so they were a hypocrite. That's what their name was. And so it's such a good picture of what we look at people and we say, well, you're a hypocrite. You pretend on the outside to be something that you're not on the inside. And it's a person who's wearing a mask, someone who's playing a script. It's not truth. They're not playing life. They're playing some sort of script that they think is going to make them look better or be better. So hypocrisy is usually more evident to other people than it is to ourselves, because we're not spending time before the Lord, asking him, the mirror of him, to show us who we are. Self-awareness comes from looking into the face of Jesus. It comes from getting into the Word. It comes from allowing the Lord to show us who we are. And so we have to deal with ourselves personally, and until my personal opinion is until we get to the place that we don't have any specks, do we really need to be looking around for boards or specks in anyone else's life? So those are just things to think about today, and think about the places in which you placed a mask on yourself, and you're speaking from some sort of script that really isn't who you are. And even if who you are has some issues, you know what? That's all right. God can heal those. We can deal with that, especially, if you're in a fellowship and where we're not asking people to be perfect. We're asking people to be real. We're asking people to come and grow with us. So I think that's an interesting thought.